Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of What We Do in the Shadows, Season 5, Episode 5, titled Local News. I feel like we should have like a news ticker at the bottom that's like breaking news. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun talking about the latest events of What We Do in the Shadows. Does everyone know the truth? Back in 5.
Oh my goodness. This was one of the funniest episodes I've ever seen of this show. This had a moment in it that like rivaled Do You Want a Ripe Banana, which was one of the funniest things I have just ever seen, period. I was like giggling to myself over Do You Want a Ripe Banana for like a week straight, just by myself. And people be like, what's going on? Do you want a ripe banana?
I think the thing that's so great about this episode is like there's meaningful stuff in it. Like there's things that
Oh
definitely
yeah.
matter when it comes to like the long term, but at the same exact time, there are also still so many just like ridiculous laugh out loud moments that this is going to be one. I feel like people, when it's like a rainy day, you're feeling a little bit depressed, you just put this episode on, you have some great laughs at all the nonsense with the news anchor Laszlo's plan, the just sensational final few minutes of this.
Yeah, the absolute just chaos with this episode was just 10 out
Yep.
of 10. The humor, how each of the vampires were dealing with their possible exposure of what was going on and their plans to fix it or run away, or oh my goodness, everything about this episode was so good.
Well, go ahead, get your tinfoil hats ready because there's some theory stuff that we got to be
Mhm.
getting into here as well. But before we do go forward, join our Patreon. You can check that out right over in the link in the description below because every Tuesday night
Mhm.
we are over there talking all about what we do in the shadows, TV, taking your questions. It is a whole lot of fun. Just we do these live discussions every week over there. We want you guys to be a part of it. And thank you, of course, to everyone who has joined so far. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. The live streams have been a lot of fun talking about this show, but yeah, we really appreciate it. Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about the funniest moment that happened in this
All right, all
episode,
right, all right.
which had to do with my guy Nandor. I just love him. He's so
Yeah.
funny. As I said, I love the "Do you want a ripe banana?" That was him as well.
Yeah.
But when he was being interviewed about this broken water main, which was how this all started, and I don't know who was playing the reporter. I don't know her, but
Yeah.
her comedic timing was also just so perfect in this. I was like, and what's your name? Nandor the Relentless. All right, I'm here with Nandor de Laurentiis. I just about spit my coffee out. I was not expecting that. It came just so smoothly and slick. It was so funny.
I think what made to put this episode and this reporter character work so
She was
unbelievably well
great.
is that she was so locked in on okay, I need to be professional no
Yes.
matter what. I need to maintain my training, and she did like all these little quips and all these little sound bites that you tend to hear in the morning, like whenever you're watching the morning news, like because when Mandor goes through this thing about being around since like the 1800s, and she was like, and now we have found the secret to eternal life. Back to you guys.
Yeah, that when people say things that are pretty strange,
Yeah.
yeah, she was just keeping it rolling.
Yeah, like she played
De
off.
Laurentiis.
Okay, yeah, that was incredibly funny and one of the best parts of the episode. Now, to me though, I'll tell a little bit of a story here. When I was in, college, I was not a journalism major. I was English with creative writing, but
Mhm.
I did do some journalism stuff on the side, and at my school, SMU in Dallas, we had a morning news show that we would do. And for like a few months, I would go in and do like entertainment news, and I would like sit at the desk and I would like put on the suit, and so I learned a little bit about how to do a morning newscast and all of this sort of stuff. And I'm very familiar with the prospect of the old green screen and things you can wear and not wear. So just the way that they did this when they cut to the vampire Colin Robinson, and
Oh.
he's just a complete green screen, his entire shirt, and he's just like disembodied, floating around, not aware whatsoever of what is going on. Like it was so it was so perfectly pitched. It also just reminded me of like the Whose Line Is It Anyway, like newscast game that they would do sometimes, where somebody would do the weather, somebody would do sports, and Laszlo.
Oh man, Colin has been cooking this
Yeah.
season. Like last season, I was a little more disappointed with Colin's storyline because
Yeah.
he wasn't really kind of there because it was the baby Colin Robinson growing up. It's so good to have him back in full form like this. Like watching him in the chaos when Nandor comes back home and is just like, guys, I messed up. I revealed to everybody on the news that we're vampires, which he really didn't, but he thinks he did. And just the chaos that ensues and watching, not just like, okay, I've got, the go bags. We're all going to go. And Laszlo's like, no, we need to like grab her. And Nandor's like, no, we just need to kill her. Watching Colin just booby trap the house was so funny. Everything was a trap.
It worked so brilliantly because every single character had something different that they wanted to do.
Except for the guide who was basically like whatever Naja's idea is because we're going to be friends.
Yeah.
I really want you guys to be friends.
I even love the idea that like, Naja's like, I have a new identity, everyone. And it's basically Naja's accent work. I mean, it leaves something to be desired, but I think that's probably a part of the fun with it.
Kind of like Meryl Streep over on Only Murders in the Building this season. If you haven't seen that trailer, it is hilarious.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. She's just like, I've got a new persona. I'm going to do this really bad accent with blonde hair. Her doll had blonde hair. The guy comes in with dark hair. Like, not even all of it was specified. But okay, we want to talk about people who were cooking though. Laszlo, my man here. Okay, were you gonna hiss every time I say Laszlo all season long?
Correct.
Okay, well that's fine, because you know why? I have a plan, everyone. Stage 1.
All right. Who do you think had the best plan? If you were a vampire
It's a really bold question.
Yeah, and you were in this situation, out of the plans that everybody had, who had the best plan? I think if this was like the real and it was really like they were exposed, it's Naja.
Yeah, I wish I could have a different answer for the sake of heightened disagreement, but really I can't, because Colin's plan, congratulations, you will potentially kill the people who come in. That does not actually help you when it comes to being exposed. Laszlo's plan is we kidnap this poor woman, despite the fact that, she's only the messenger. So you're shooting the messenger. Everything else is completely out there in the open. Your plan is terrible.
Finally, they get to the right plan, which is that they just hypnotize everybody. And I know that we've had a lot of that this season too, where even Laszlo was just like, you can't just hypnotize everybody. It can't just be the answer to everything. But even in this episode, it was like, yeah, it's the answer.
All right, tinfoil hat time here.
You will all subscribe to this channel.
That's better than anything I was going to say. No, they've already done it. So since you have all now subscribed to the channel, I have a feeling that we are in a spot. Not everybody watches the news, right? Like, let's throw this out there. I mean, in addition to telling us whose plan was the best, how many of you actually watch your local news? Because I have a feeling that there's somebody who was around that scene, because it was a scene, and if I was in that neighborhood...
Yeah, they're levitating a car out of the ground.
I feel like somebody had to see this that was not watching the news the next day and was not getting brainwashed. It just feels too easy. And so much of us this season has been about these vampires being insanely reckless and just like continuing to put themselves in danger. And I know What We Do in the Shadows as a show, there is some long-term storylines. Like we'll talk about it with Guillermo in this episode, but I think this is something that they could explore again a little bit later on. How do you contend with this idea that you've created such an enormous mess that the idea of you're going to be able to just sort of use your powers and just like make it go away instantly, like as much fun as it was to see the poor reporter's body just like drug along on the floor while Colin is doing his weather report. It's like this cannot be the solution to all the problems you guys have already created.
At least the guide got a meal.
There you go. So somebody won out of all of this, but I hope that they can find a way to revisit all of this with this in mind.
Okay, let's talk about some of the more difficult stuff in this episode because we saw Guillermo is really struggling with knowing that once he transforms that the people who are human in his life, he can't really be around them anymore, and if he is, I mean they're going to end up dying on him, and he will go on and they will not, and he doesn't want to put them at any sort of risk that when he really turns that they may have to kill him. I mean,
Yeah.
they're all Van Helsing blood. But watching him go there and try to have this conversation with his mom, sort of I can't tell you what's going on, but I have to say goodbye, and this will be the last time I'll see you, and him leaving in tears, and her saying, well, this is the third time he's come to say goodbye to me. Like, I don't know what's going on, but, I'm sure I'll see him next week. He doesn't feel that. I mean, watching him in the elevator really, really break down. This show is surprisingly emotional for a show that is so funny.
Guillermo, in his heart, I think he's a really good person who wants to do as close as the right thing as he can, and I think
He
that
truly cares about people.
yeah, and he doesn't want to hurt his mom, but he also he's wanted to be a vampire since the very start of this show, and he knows what comes with being a vampire, and there are sacrifices that need to be made, and I just think I feel even worse for him right now because he's in a spot where he's pretty helpless. He doesn't know exactly what to do with this situation that he's in. Laszlo clearly doesn't have any idea as to what to really do. I mean, I think we should be questioning all of Laszlo's ideas right now, given that it's just kidnap her and nothing else. But there's nothing. He just is scrambling, and he is really lost. And who's to say where he will be a week from now? But that's not what he feels, obviously, in that very moment.
Yeah, and besides Laszlo, he truly has no one that he can talk to about it. He doesn't really know what's happening to himself, why he's not transforming all the way. He's, fearful of what's going to happen with Nandor. And I mean, even that conversation we saw Guillermo trying to get back to the house. He's seeing everything unfolding on the news, all the
Yeah.
nonsense that's going on. He finally gets back. He's like, okay, guys, I'm here to help. I can help you. And Nandor says, we don't need you. I don't need you. Like, I have a plan. And his plan did end up working. It's just kind of like to see these two characters getting pulled apart like this, it just really breaks my heart because for me, they're like really their relationship is really part of the heartbeat of this
Mhm.
show, and they've been pulled apart so much this season because of Guillermo's decision not telling Nandor. We saw last episode he's avoiding him. This episode Nandor's like, I don't need you anymore. Like, I thought that I did at the beginning of this whole situation, but I've come up with another plan. The plan ended up working. Where does this leave these two? Guillermo's sitting by himself in the other room just watching TV, being like, I guess he didn't need me. Like, the plan did work.
I think this is going to be a big mistake for Nandor, like a really catastrophic mistake, because it's just because you didn't need him for this plan doesn't mean you're not going to need him for future plans. Nandor has had a lot of terrible ideas since the start
How
of
dare
what
you?
I still love you, Nandor, but
That's
sometimes
right.
the truth hurts, and this is the truth.
It's
That
true. He doesn't think into the future. He's usually just kind of like right now.
he is an impulsive puppy sometimes, and sometimes you need somebody to guide the impulsive puppy in the right direction. And every now and then you can sniff out the right answer. But Nandor, this is gonna blow up terribly in your face. Guillermo is effectively your fixer. He is there to correct all of your different problems. Like, even when he was locked away previously on this show, he was going out of there, sneaking around, making you believe that he was still locked up, but also making sure the house didn't fall apart. So
Yep.
you are going to regret this. You are going to regret this like severely. It's just kind of a matter of when. And I know they have a season 6, but I don't expect them to play it out for like that much time.
Yeah, and I feel like Guillermo's going to end up having regrets with this as well. I mean, we've seen it a little bit in this episode where, Yeah, he wants to be a vampire, but we see him having regrets of having to say goodbye to his family. I think the hearing "I don't need you" is really gonna sit with him as well, because as he's sort of transitioning out of being the familiar and into being a vampire and away from his family and feeling really isolated that he doesn't have that companionship, I mean, I feel he's gonna have regrets about that too.
The other thing that, I'm really just thinking about this now is that there is such an established sort of dynamic with all these different characters at this point where the guy, like, she's not a new vampire, but she's
No.
still struggling to fit in with these other vampires. If Guillermo becomes a vampire, like, yeah, he has a relationship with these people, but it's not the same. Like, you gonna show
No,
up and be a vampire now?
yeah, we saw that whole episode with them at the mall at the birthday dinner where they're all laughing at the idea
Yeah.
of him being a vampire. Like, once he turns, if he turns all the way, are they even going to accept him? They barely accepted him as a familiar.
Okay, so where is all of this going? I don't think I ever took the tinfoil hat off, but I'm just gonna keep it on here for a moment.
I don't think I put mine on.
Okay, well there we go. We are together in this. Like this isn't a spoiler per se because like this has been put out by FX already. Like the next episode is titled Urgent Care. And if we're gonna kind of get crazy about this, like the end of this episode, it shows Guillermo just like falling victim to a million different traps and things going terribly awry. This could be nothing. A lot of times the end of these episodes don't necessarily connect to what's next or anything like
No,
that.
like we never saw Naja and Dolly actually switch back.
No. So it's certainly possible that's the end of this episode and it's nothing. But if it's a situation where he actually is really hurt and like, Naja ends up sort of taking him to urgent care to have it dealt with, like she's going to find out like that something is awry here, right? Like I think man, it would be even worse. What if Nandor's the last person to know? Like
He absolutely will be.
that is gonna hurt like even so much more.
Yeah, my tinfoil hat theory is that he's going to end up in urgent care because of his transformation. That something, we already saw that something is not going right. He should have already been fully transformed by now. He's not. That maybe something is going to happen where he actually feels like he needs care.
I feel like I'm already taking that's backwards. I feel like I'm gonna take. There we go. I'm taking a big L right now for my whole. They're gonna try to cure Guillermo theory that I've had
I
for.
don't know. Don't
Hey,
no, get rid of that L. You haven't taken an L yet.
maybe it's a premature L, but it's sort of like I thought maybe they would be getting to this by now because the idea of trying to cure Guillermo of this so that Nandor can turn him or whatever else could happen down the road. It's such an appealing storyline to me. Maybe I'm just selfish and I want this theory to be correct so I can take a victory lap. But I think it's just like it's a really interesting idea. And I want what Guillermo wants at the end of the day because I love Guillermo. I care for him as a character. I want him to be a vampire, but I want him to be the vampire the right way.
I'm pretty worried that they are going to go with he has Van Helsing blood, so he
Mhm.
can never really turn, where then he's just stuck in this spot where he's just a familiar for the rest of his life. I know that the show was going to have to deal with this at some point. They weren't going to just have 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, 10 seasons where he never actually gets turned, because at some point it's like, we'd like to see that storyline play out. So how do you have it that Guillermo doesn't get to turn
Mhm.
and he stays with the vampires? That's how you do it. You make it that he can't turn because of the Van Helsing blood. But I would rather it be because, Nandor has an agreement with Guillermo. They talked about it at the dinner where
Yeah.
it was kind of like, oh, your vampire has to turn you, or else it's like this huge humiliation and then they're just going to have to kill you. Like it's all a problem, that maybe it still can go this way where it has to be Nandor and that'll be the end of the series.
I'm rooting for you guys. You can do it. Okay. Big picture. This is my second favorite episode of the season so far. And this has been a really, really good season. Like, I don't think there are any big misses. Like, to me, Pride
No.
Parade is still number one.
Oh, so funny.
But, like, this episode was really, really funny, really memorable. super rewatchable. Like with this show in particular, I do think a lot about like, okay, would I want to watch this again? It's kind of like The Office in that way, where it's like, there are episodes of The Office I've probably seen like 7 or 8 times. I want to watch this episode again right now.
Absolutely. This is a top episode for me, right up there with Do You Want to Write Banana?
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for watching, hanging out with us. This newscast is now over. Boop, 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 boop. Thank you to all of our patrons, and we'll see you here next time.